If you disobey me and remain hostile to me, I will act against you in wrathful hostility. These are the opening words of Mad God, pulled straight from Leviticus 26, and it sets the tone perfectly. This isn't a story about salvation. It's about wrath, ruin, and a God who has long since lost his mind. The story unfolds through the journey of a figure known only as the Assassin. He's kind of the main character, but at the same time, there really isn't a main character. In the end, you realize you're not watching someone's life or personal journey, you're just spectating a world drenched in horror. The plot. As the movie begins, we're shown a depiction of the Tower of Babel, based on the ancient myth of the Babylonians attempting to build a tower high enough to reach the heavens. But then, according to legend, God confounded their language so they could no longer understand each other, and they failed to complete the tower. But this isn't the only myth with that theme. Across different cultures, there's many stories of people trying to build towers to reach the divine, and in every case, the gods do something to stop them. Yet, in this world, it seems they succeeded. Everyone surrounds this massive tower, cheering in triumph, while a mysterious figure, presumably their leader, stands proudly at the top. Now, it's debated who that figure really is. Some say it's a god. Others say it's a man. What's interesting is that the same figure seems to reappear later in the film. But at that moment, as he stands atop the tower, lightning strikes him, and a massive black cloud engulfs the structure. This marks the beginning of Mad God's punishment, the beginning of divine wrath. We then see a man inside a long, tube-like capsule, slowly descending from the sky. As he drops through the earth, we're taken on a journey through layers of this strange, broken world. Each level feels like its own twisted dimension. In one layer, we see what looks like endless dinosaur bones. In another, there are statues of creatures being frozen in time, like a graveyard of long-forgotten idols, giant skulls of things we can't even name. Finally, he reaches what appears to be his destination. His first encounter? It's brief, but chilling. We see a cluster of tiny people yelling at each other, and without a moment's hesitation, our descending figure crushes them underfoot. Yeah, it's clear early on that our protagonist isn't really a hero. Then he encounters something deeply unsettling. A creature, bandaged like a mummy, crawling out of a pipe, making eerie, monkey-like noises. It appears to be fishing on land, using a string with a small light at the end, trying to bait something. And then out comes a monster with a massive butcher knife. Oh boy, this scene, it gave me nightmares. The butchered visuals, the grotesque anatomy, it's hard to watch, and yet it's mesmerizing. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if many of these creatures were once human. There's something deeply familiar in their twisted features. The bandaged thing? Almost humanoid. And that disgusting butcher creature? Yeah, it has boobies. Apparently the sounds drew its attention, and without hesitation the monster grabs the bandaged creature and chops it into pieces. And then the assassin just moves on, without even attempting to help the poor creature. That's part of what makes this so disturbing. It's not just the violence, it's that the assassin shrugs, like, alright, he's dead. This world is so far gone, so ruined, that scenes like this, random creatures being butchered right in front of you, are just normal. Just another Tuesday. He pulls out a map. As he checks it, the top of it falls off, almost like it's disintegrating. From watching closely, it seems like each time he gets closer to his destination, a piece of the map crumbles away, like the journey literally erasing the path behind him. He next finds himself in a room. Something about it feels oddly familiar. there's this creature. It looks like a monkey. And here's where I have a bit of a theory. There are a lot of monkeys, or monkey-like beings, scattered throughout this film. It can't be random. I feel like it's symbolic. Maybe tied to the idea of religion or evolution or even the divine punishing us before we ever existed. It's as if the mad god's wrath wasn't just meant for us, but for everything that came before us. Or maybe they just don't like monkeys. Who knows? But this one monkey is strapped to an operating table, seemingly conscious and begging for help. You can see the desperation in its eyes as it locks eyes with the assassin. And what does the assassin do? Nothing. He glances around the room, creatures trapped in cages, another doll moving on its own. Then he focuses on the doll's eyes. Something clicks. We cut back to the monkey and notice its eyeballs are exactly the same as the doll's. That's when it hits you. They're doing experiments here, transferring life or consciousness into dolls. It's twisted science or sorcery or both. And what does our protagonist do? He just closes the door and walks away. He could have helped. He should have helped, but nope, he leaves them to die. Throughout this entire journey, the assassin has countless chances to intervene, to help someone, to show even a flicker of compassion, but he never does. You could argue he doesn't want to meddle, that maybe he's bound by some mission or code, but I don't buy that. Once you learn who the assassin is and who he works for, everything becomes clearer. He is not a hero. The next scene is pretty important. We see the assassin inside a strange factory, but not just any factory. This one is producing humanoid slaves, mass manufactured like parts on an assembly line. These humanoids are nothing more than fodder, created solely to perform tasks and then die. That's their purpose. When one is crushed, burned, or obliterated, another is instantly made to take its place. The actual product of the factory? Monoliths. These towering slabs are being manufactured and then inserted into pyramids, like some kind of mechanical religion or dark ritual. Meanwhile, the humanoid workers are being smashed, rolled over, stepped on, burned, and subjected to all forms of abuse. Every single imaginable cruelty is inflicted on them. They're shouted at constantly through loudspeakers by a voice that sounds eerily like a child. The screen on the monitor shows nothing but a giant eyeball and a mouth yelling orders. That eyeball? It becomes a recurring symbol throughout the film. It feels like a reference to the eye of God, always watching, always judging. But not with mercy or love. No, it watches with relish, delighting in their suffering, ensuring they obey. At first, you don't even think these humanoid creatures are alive. You assume they're just animated shells, tools, or automatons. But then something changes. One of the humanoids walks up to the assassin, stops, and turns his head curiously. The assassin looks back. And that's the moment you realize they're alive. They're aware. And yet again, the assassin does nothing. He watches silently as the curious creature is crushed into the ground over and over by the machinery that runs this place. He could have helped. He didn't. Eventually, the assassin reaches his destination. That suitcase he's been carrying the entire time? It's a bomb. He activates the timer. And that's when we see it. A massive tower filled with other bombs. Bombs that never went off. Bombs that were left behind. Because this assassin, he's not the first. Others have tried to come here and destroy this place. None made it out alive. And now we understand why. A robot alien-looking creature captures the assassin, and for some reason, the bomb's timer stops. Right at 1 second. It doesn't go off. Then comes a very intriguing scene. We see an audience watching the assassin on an operating table. They strip him of all his clothing while the crowd laughs at his suffering, but essentially, the assassin is now wrapped like a mummy. As the camera pulls back, we see other assassins, the ones who came before him, and what became of them. This sequence focuses heavily on the passage of time. We hear a clock ticking, speeding up and slowing down depending on the tension in the scene. It's symbolic, our mortality, how little time we really have, and in the assassin's case, his time is up. Two blood-covered doctors enter and start cutting him open, ripping out his organs, throwing them everywhere. And then something unexpected happens. They start pulling out jewelry, gold, and gems. At first, it's confusing, but maybe this is Tippett's way of showing the intrinsic value of human life. The idea that even after stripping everything away, there's something precious left inside. Then they pull out a disturbing worm-like baby that cries like a human infant. We'll come back to that thing. They take the worm baby away and drill a hole into the assassin's skull, inserting a pipe to extract his memories. What we see next appears to be the surface world, a place full of war pigs and destruction. It becomes clear. The assassin is just as expendable as the humanoid slaves we saw earlier. This is a metaphor for war, where soldiers are pawns, discarded once they've served their purpose. We then meet a character known as the Last Man. He, the two doctors, and a few others are the only characters who aren't stop motion. It's a striking contrast. This man lives in comfort, sending soldiers to their death without a care. He's got long, gross fingernails, probably just to enhance how unsettling he is, and 3 old women under his table, likely representing the fates from mythology. They're working on a map made of skin, the same one the assassin had earlier. We see the Last Man sending the assassin down the same tube from the beginning. The assassin's first stop, a destroyed sea. Then a red creature appears, zapping the remains of a human, which is interesting because we see someone watching him from a window, meaning there's still life in this dead city. The assassin finds a car, hotwires it, and drives through fields of corpses, skulls on spikes, and eventually reaches a hellish war zone. It seems this area is the dumping ground for fallen soldiers. In war, sometimes the battlefield is the graveyard. We see bombs exploding and tanks rolling, and yet the assassin is unfazed. Perhaps it's showing how numb soldiers become to the chaos around them. He finally makes it to the entrance of his goal, and we cut back to the now dead assassin. The doctors take the crying worm baby and walk toward a massive door guarded by a floating plague doctor-like figure. He looks similar to the being atop the Tower of Babel in the opening scene, possibly the same entity or maybe just a parallel. He takes the creature and walks a long, isolated path to the alchemist, showing his separation from everything else. Could this be God? Maybe not, but he's definitely playing God. The alchemist smashes the worm, turning it into a pile of shining dust, throws it into a forge, and what follows is a big bang. A new universe is born. We see the sun, planets, and what looks like Earth, and then an alien spacecraft enters, along with a monolith like the ones built earlier. When the monolith lands, life begins. We fast forward through time, cities, skyscrapers, and suddenly it looks a lot like the Tower of Babel from the beginning. And just like before, destruction follows. The overarching final theme of Mad God is the sense that it is within man's nature to destroy itself and the world through greed, no matter what God creates. Horrorcraft of Mad God. Phil Tippett didn't just direct Mad God, he built it, frame by agonizing frame. This isn't CGI overload, it's stop motion done at a nearly insane level of detail. Every twisted creature, every crumbling structure, every pulsing cable was physically constructed, animated, and filmed over 3 decades. Visually, Mad God is like watching the contents of a haunted dollhouse set on fire and filmed through a microscope. The textures are greasy, fleshy, and industrial. Think Cronenberg meets Bosch in a nightmare dimension. Tippett layers his world with grime, decay, and the feeling that everything is alive and suffering. The sound design? Just as unsettling. There's no dialogue, only the ambient groans of dying machines, the droning of sirens, and the occasional baby scream or butcher's cleaver. The silence hurts. It draws you in and forces you to stare longer than you want to. Pacing-wise, it's slow, purposefully so. Mad God doesn't rush its horror, it marinates in it, like a fever dream that doesn't end when you wake up. This is horror as tactile art. It's more about dread than plot, mood over momentum. Tippett didn't make this for jump scares. He made it to crawl under your skin and stay there. Fear factor score 6. Surreal terror. Mad God isn't scary in the jump scare sense. It's not trying to make you scream, it's trying to make you squirm. The horror here is existential, symbolic, and psychological. It's the kind that haunts your dreams more than your waking moments. Like dredging up a childhood nightmare you thought you'd forgotten. You won't scream watching it, but you might feel deeply, inexplicably wrong afterward. Final thoughts. Mad God is one of the most fascinating, grotesque, freakish, terrifying, and strangely beautiful films ever made. It's not just a film, it's an experience, a meditation on madness, destruction, and the futility of godlike ambition. Every frame is handcrafted horror, every sequence a scream into the void. I'll finish this review with a quote from Tippett discussing how he feels about Mad God. The final form of Mad God isn't the film itself, but how you feel after you watch it. It's bringing you to that moment just after waking up from a dream, frozen, exploring fragments of your feral mind before they fade back into the shadows. That's the moment. Mad God is just a way to get you there. If you haven't seen it, do. Also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next review.